You're listening to Surviving and Thriving with Renisha, a podcast about life, mental health, and personal growth. Here I talk about my journey living with borderline personality disorder, depression, and anxiety, and how I'm learning to love myself despite it. Let's get into it. Hello, welcome back to the podcast. If you're new here, my name is Rennie. I go by Just Riri Shop Online, and I am gonna dive right into today's episode. So right now we are collectively going through a period of just so much massive transformation, which can feel and often is, and in this case, pretty much is for most of us, pretty chaotic. Um, and so I just want to talk a little bit about how we can navigate this. And one of the best things that I think that we could be doing both in our personal lives, but just in the grand scheme of things, is to show up in our truth, to show up in our truth, to show up in our authenticity, and to speak from our hearts, to speak our truth. And so I want to talk a little bit about how I have been learning to do that and just some things that I've been trying to do in a more balanced way because I'm someone who has struggled. And I talk about this a little bit in the last episode that I did with balance and how I approach, you know, setting boundaries, standing up for myself, speaking my truth. And I think that we're kind of all in this season as like a unit, especially those of you who like myself live in the United States where we have to set boundaries, we have to protect our energy, we have to speak our minds and speak our truth and speak up. And that can feel so uncomfortable. And I have been working on doing that in a productive and healthy way. And I've still struggled with that because I'm someone that can speak harshly. Right. And again, if you're new here, I'm someone who has been diagnosed as borderline personality disorder or with having borderline personality disorder, depression, anxiety. I've talked a lot about how I feel personally about labels, but I also understand like the need, you know, as a human to have labels so that we could try to understand things. I personally find it very limiting, but those are the labels that I have been prescribed in the medical clinical sense. Um, and as such, I feel like I have displayed behaviors and things that people would categorize under those specific labels. So I will say I have been the type of person that has struggled to say what I need to say how I feel, articulate my emotions, set boundaries, stick up for myself um in a way that's productive, in a way that can be received by others. Like it's usually just been really harsh. Like I'm someone who's very cutting with my words. And even if my intention a lot of times is to just be honest and saying how I feel and what I'm thinking and how that could be influencing my emotions or my behaviors, the way that I've communicated to people, at least in my personal life, but also I see it showing in my professional life too, I think is harsh. And I think that oftentimes it's not met with the intention that I want to give. It's not received. And so I've definitely been in a season of life of learning better ways to articulate how I feel and what I think and how to set boundaries, but also respect boundaries that other people set towards me and respect where other people are coming from and where they're at in their own journeys. And that's been really hard. And I think what's really been difficult right now is that so many of us are going through things like this in our personal life, and it feels like we're still trying to learn these things because unfortunately, not everyone grows up in a healthy home, and conflict resolution skills in today's society, in my opinion, are very poor. I know I'm someone who has really poor conflict resolution skills. I tend to be more on the aggressive or passive aggressive side, and it's something that I've been working on. But because so many of us lack those skills, and this is like a time for us to come together, build community, work together, and speak our truth and stand up against what we perceive as injustice. We can't really do that if we're not really honing in on these skills. And so, um, I think first and foremost, we start by being comfortable and being confident and embracing who we are and showing up as ourselves. Because I feel like if so many of us, and this goes for myself and just, in my experience, those that I've perceived around me, it's felt like we've had to perform, and this society is set up in a way to where we have had to perform. And we are moving out of that. We are shifting out of that. This is a whole new terrain. This a whole new paradigm. And those of you who like to see things from a higher vantage point, you might feel optimistic about it. And those of you who are more grounded in this reality, you might feel a lot of fear coming up. But regardless of what emotion you're feeling, we all know that we are entering completely new territory right now. And what's required of us is changing. And I think in order for us to really be able to speak our truth, to find our people, to build community, to work together, to learn those conflict resolution skills and have like the space and be in spaces that give you the grace to heal, because that takes practice. We have to show up as our true, authentic selves in order to do that. I think now more than ever, it's more than ever, it's so imperative for us to be finding our people, finding our spaces, finding the spaces where it feels easy to show up as our authentic selves, where it feels easy, or I wouldn't necessarily say easy because it can be uncomfortable, but where it feels like you have the grace to make mistakes and you are able to have conflict resolution in healthier ways, or at least work towards, a path towards doing that in a healthy way. Um, and like I said, that requires us to be honest about who we are, what we need, and show up in our truth, right? So I'm seeing a lot of conversations online. And I have honestly over the past couple of years about like friendships, just changes in our friendships, changes in our relationships, changes in how we approach like workplace conflicts and issues. And I'm in a position, and I have been in a position over the last 5 years, honestly, that's been super. It's just like my life has been constantly thrown upside down, and I can see that I am being taught a lot of lessons when it comes to relationships, romantic, platonic, and workplace relationships as well. I have really navigated with how to articulate my needs in pretty much every relationship, but also how to express my feelings and my thoughts in a way, like I said, that can be received, right? And not in a way that's going to trigger others or cause more chaos than necessary. Because some discomfort is necessary and honestly normal in relationships with others because people aren't not you, right? Everyone's different. But in my case, I feel like I feel like I was always blowing things up, right? Like it's just like I come in, I disrupt, I blow things up, and then I'm like, peace out. And then people are left either, in awe, in admiration. It's weird because like I have received, I'm one of those people, and I kind of hate this, and it's something I'm working on, but I'm either loved or hated. People are either received me in like awe or like, oh, you're so interesting and so weird and like honest and blunt, and I love it, or people are like, oh, you're too much, you're annoying, like it's the way I've been received has been like polar opposite. um and I'm someone who's been working on being completely honest in how I show up, because for so long I thought, me just being blunt as a neurospicy woman, that's not hard, right? Was just me being myself. Like me showing up, being honest and being blunt and transparent meant I was showing up as my full whole self to me. But that's not true. The past couple of months, especially, have really made it very clear that in a lot of ways, I've still been struggling with really letting people in, really being vulnerable, and the times that I have had those opportunities, I have either gotten in the way of myself, like self-sabotaged, or if I felt like the person's space environment wasn't aligning for me or was difficult or challenging for me, I've struggled to articulate that in a way that feels healthy, at least to me. And it's something that I've been working on. I'm in a phase in my life where it feels like, and I'm into astrology, so I know we're going through a lot astrologically. This is for those of you who aren't into astrology or who are, but maybe you're like kind of new to it, this year has been talked about since before I was born. And I was born in 1992. So like just know that we are in a whole new territory. Like the energy is just very different right now. Um, but as such, like what's been happening for me personally, especially like going through my Mars return, and we're in Aries season right now, and I'm feeling it, right? It's the time where I think a lot of us are feeling like we need to let go of what's not working for us. Like we can't even pretend anymore. We can't pretend in relationships with friends or in work environments that don't feel healthy to us. Like we can't even pretend. Like we are I think all of the relationships that I've been witnessing have been transitioning or blowing up because I think we struggle to really know how to show up in our truth in a ways that feel healthy or handle the conflict or discomfort that comes with that in meaningful ways because for so long society has tried to kind of make us all the same. Like we've kind of all been forced into little boxes of this is what is acceptable, right? This is what is acceptable. And I think at this point we're like, oh no, like what's acceptable is not working anymore. So I might as well just be honest. I might as well just be myself. I might as well just take the mask off, stop performing, tell the people in my life who I feel like aren't showing up for me, like, I don't like this, or express to this toxic work environment that this is not working for me. I gotta go. Or, tell my partner or whoever I'm in a relationship with, like, this is what I would like to see, and I'm not seeing that. Like, we're being really honest, or at least we're like heading into territory where we feel like we're reaching that like we're basically at our wits, I feel like, as a collective. And now is the time for us to show up in our truth and to speak our truth. But when it comes to learning how to do that in a healthy way, that's where it gets tricky. And so for me, some things that have been I don't want to say helping me, but some things that I've been reflecting on is one, let me just sit with myself and really get very honest about who I feel I am, what I feel I need, at least in this season of life, and how I have been able to, or maybe unable to, communicate those needs and those feelings and those thoughts and all of what I think I am and who I think I am and what I feel I need to be the best version of myself in this season. Sit and reflect on how that's communicated or not communicated, and what can I be doing at this time to feel comfortable showing up as my true authentic self. So, what that looks like for me has been learning to set boundaries, learning to speak my truth, but trying to do that in a way that doesn't feel like it's causing more harm for me or for others. I really struggle with this. So, recently, like I've had to communicate this in like work environments and also in relationships and friendship, pretty much basically every aspect of my life. Yeah. Um, and I feel like I've done a bad job, but what I am trying to do is at least be honest, right? I feel like I'm in a phase of life where I am still learning to be or feel safe letting people in and being vulnerable, but also I know that I have high standards. I know that I'm a perfectionist, and I know that my perfectionism um has caused me to turn inwards in a negative way towards myself. Historically, I'm someone who has had negative self-talk and had to do and is continuing to do a lot of self-esteem healing and work and self-love healing and work. But also, I have recently realized just how impactful this has been on my relationships because there is a fine line between having boundaries and things that you don't want to settle for, and also acknowledging that every single human being is a human who is not capable of perfection, will make mistakes, may or may not hurt you, whether it's intentional or not. And a lot of times it's not, sometimes it is, right? But I think that I am at a place now where I know I want to build community. So I think we sit with ourselves, we figure out what it is that we feel like we are and what we want. I'm identifying what I want right now at this in this season of life is deep connections and community. But I'm also acknowledging that I am blocking myself from that because I am someone who's a perfectionist and I'm someone who has historically, and I'm healing this, feared vulnerability. I feel like I teeter back and forth between avoidance and anxious attachment styles. And I feel like more recently it's been avoidant. I think for a number of years it was an anxious attachment. Like I was very codependent in my previous relationships, but now I'm at a place where I feel a little too comfortable with my solitude, a little too comfortable being isolated and being alone because in those spaces it's safe because if you don't let people get close to you, you can't really get hurt. And there is a lack of vulnerability in that. And I think that lack of vulnerability is blocking me from actually being able to create the community, create the deep connections I actually desire. And so that's something I've been sitting with. And but also at the same time acknowledging that I have had to encounter people and be in spaces and environments that don't feel aligned for me and that aren't making me feel good. And so I'm still learning the balance between where I need to change and where I need to set boundaries with others and learning to do that in a healthy way, right? I used to respond to issues that I had where I feel like I self-sabotaged by really going down a path of like self-destruction. And now instead, I am being more intentional about doing the things I know that make me feel good and make me feel like the best version of myself, and also speaking my truth to others in a way that can be received, right? And like that requires vulnerability. So right now I've been practicing that in my relationships because earlier this year and late last year I feel like I was blowing a lot of things up because I was feeling all these emotions and I didn't know how to communicate it or I didn't really know what to do with the emotions I was feeling, honestly. So I feel like I just started blowing things up. I feel like I just started saying everything and not really taking into account the impact of that on others and what they might be going through. So in a sense, it feels, me trying to learn how to take care of myself and speak my truth can feel selfish to other people, but we're all in our own journey, right? And so acknowledging that I've made mistakes and now I still have an opportunity to do it differently. That's where I'm at now. And as I'm seeing so many of us with the desire to build community, to build spaces, to hold space, and to have deep relationships and connections that feel good to us, I just want to say that it requires us to be very honest with ourselves about who we are and what we want, what we need, but also it requires a level of vulnerability. We can't run from ourselves. We have to sit with ourselves. And that doesn't just mean, maybe journaling about your day, which is great. That doesn't mean just like writing down a list of things we want. Like it requires a lot of inner work that can be very uncomfortable. It requires us to sit with the parts of ourselves that we might not necessarily like. It requires us to address and confront things that will probably, may hurt, may make us upset, but it's necessary. And I feel like if we don't consciously make the choice to do it, unfortunately, with everything that's going on right now, it's gonna come up one way or another. And like in my experience, usually when it's come up against my will, it has blown my life up in ways that I can't even articulate, honestly. And so it's better to just make the decision to do it, right? To stop fighting yourself, to be honest with what you want and what you need, and to really truly embrace who you are, all of it, the good and the bad, or perceived good and bad. Because if you know me, you know I don't actually really believe in good or bad, but that's another story for another time. There's another story for another time. And those of you who are, on the wavelength, you know exactly what I mean when I say that. So yeah, some ways that I encourage you right now to show up in your truth is to take an audit. Just take an audit of what's going on in your life. And I like to write down like how these things are making me feel. Are they giving me life? Or are they draining me? And when you do go through that list and you see the things that are giving you life that are draining you, what are some more things you can introduce that are giving you life and that you feel like you show up as the best version of yourself or as the truest version of yourself? Versus where are the things that maybe you can set boundaries. Maybe you can start to take some steps to make changes in those areas of your life. That's to me one of the greatest things we can be doing right now. But also when it comes to building community, I think also just learning, relearning if you're someone who already has these skills, or learning if you're someone like me who did not grow up in environments where people had healthy conflict resolution skills. This is the time to learn those. This is the time to learn those. And I think it's okay to be honest with people and say, hey, I don't actually know what I'm doing and I'm trying to learn. And how they receive that is not within your control, but how people receive your authenticity and your honesty is really not your issue. Um, the only thing that you have control over is you. And so, as long as you continue to speak your truth and to try to show up as the best version of yourself, that's all that really matters. The people who are meant for you will receive you. The people who are not will not. So, that's actually a way for you to see people and environments that are meant for you at this time in your life. Because again, that can change, right? And I know that in this phase of my life, it's been made very clear to me what I need. I've been like finally dancing more and actually going into spaces. I've been out in nature and learning about herbalism and just finding these really incredible communities. But I know that there are some relationships in my life that may or may not reconcile. Yeah, reconcile. And I've had to really be honest with myself about what that means to me and how that feels for me, and allowing the grief that comes with letting go of what's not for me come up. Um, but also not letting it be something that ends in like you know, this chaotic and explosive way unnecessarily, right? We're just in a season of life where things are changing and we got to let go of things, and it doesn't have to be drama. It doesn't have to be chaos. And that's something that I'm still learning because historically for me, every ending has felt like an explosion. I feel like I've always kind of gone out with a bang, and learning to do that in ways that can still be loving is a goal of mine for this year. Um, And so if you are someone who struggles with that and you just feel like, oh my God, like I just cut people off and it's just, it's drama, it's pain, it's chaos, and now I'm like grieving and I feel like I'm alone or I'm misunderstood or whatever. You're not alone in that. I think me and probably half the world is we're navigating that right now and we're all learning together. So I hope if you found this and you're listening to this, you know that you're not alone. But also, you deserve people and relationships and spaces that make you feel comfortable and happy and like the best version of yourself. Um, and honestly, we need that. We need that. We need those spaces right now if we want to move us all forward. And that, in my opinion, is necessary right now. So, yeah, I think I'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. I will be back. I promise. Again, lots going on in my life, but I know this is kind of like a 2020 times 10 type of year. So I know a lot of other people are also feeling this way, and my heart goes out to you. If you are struggling right now, mentally, emotionally, please know that you're not alone. Like, I come on here in moments where I feel like I have clarity and stability, but I am not always feeling this way. I schedule regular crash outs. So just know that you are not alone, but we are moving into a whole new paradigm. And it looks chaotic and bad, but I think in the long term, things have to crumble to be built better. We are going through a collective tower moment, and tower moments, if you know anything about tarot, are necessary. That's how you grow. So, yeah, hang in there. And I love you all. And thank you for listening. And until next time, bye.